folks. We are parked outside. Not fun to get up. 6 a.m. The rabbit. Walk out here. I gotta walk through spider webs. A sprinkler that's running sprayed my arm. So I'm wet. I'm covered in webs. And I've got a 13-hour day ahead. Not that that's a complaint. At least I don't have a spider bite, yet to my knowledge. I hear a train horn in the distance, which is a sign we should not take the route I often do in this car. I like to minimize braking when I drive this older car. If I can take a route that's a couple minutes longer but with fewer stops and starts, I think it's easier on the brakes. And I mean, I'm literally getting 6 miles per gallon at 20 miles an hour. So if you're going 20 miles an hour for 10-15 minutes, there are days when I think I've burned a quarter tank of gas in this car just driving to work and back, close to it. Let's do that disgusting math. Quarter tank of gas, 24-gallon tank, that's almost 6 gallons of fuel in one day. That's $18, give or take. That's horrible. There's days I've driven this car and burned a half a tank of gas. That's $36 in fuel. But that involves errands, you know. I'm driving at least 3 hours when I do that. Probably more. And a lot of idle speed, a lot of idling. So I want to minimize that. I filled this car up. And that's the thing, the spider webs showed up overnight. I parked this car at 1 o'clock yesterday, so it's been less than 24 hours. I had a spider take back over. Ants, there was an ant colony underneath the car Saturday. Not cool. I'm finding more bugs in the car. I don't know if they're, you know, because it's parked outside. Obviously, there's a lot of things about parking outside under a tree that are not ideal for your car, and it's really irritating me. So I have 3 cars and 3 garage bays. The question is, could I shed some positions, or even if I could shed positions, I'm not certain my third car would fit in my third bay. My neighbors do it. They use their third bay and park in there. Obviously your passenger door isn't going to open, but your driver door can. So you pull in forward. And my wife did it when we first bought the house. There was not an object on the floor at all. But the negotiation of the entry was difficult. There was maybe an inch from each side mirror on each side, and there's also a concrete lip at the bottom of the floor that I think would scratch the wheels most likely. If you turn your wheel at all, you're gonna probably scratch the rim. So I just don't think that inside parking is gonna be an option with these 3 cars. Might, if I took everything out, be able to park the small car diagonally and block it in with this one, and then you play Tetris every time you want to get one out. Also, not likely worthwhile. So we're going to take a highway that, assuming there's no traffic, despite the road work, I should not go below highway speed. I am, however, getting 8 miles a gallon for the, what is it, 5 minutes it's taken to drive here. So, less than perfect, to say the least. Kind of like this camera angle. I don't like it. Can't clean my window. This car's been getting a lot of use lately. I drove it to work. Today's a Monday. I drove it on Friday. So I haven't driven my regular car to work since at least Thursday. I'll be traveling again soon. This has not been my airport car. It was my airport car, which is why because I thought if I have to park it outside, I might as well go park it in the covered airport stall instead of leave it out in the driveway in the elements. Now there's a factor there that if it costs me $18 to drive it to the airport, probably more like $12, but only $6 or something to drive the other car. Could be about that, yeah. Why do it? Not only that, but the stalls don't fit big cars well. It fits my little car a lot easier than the stall. I don't know, but once I get my work equipment out of this vehicle, defroster. I'll have those options for further airport travel. So, what have we got on board? We have 17 gallons of water. We have 4 pesticide sprayers. We have a set of clothes and shoes. We have a broad-brimmed hat and sunglasses. Long stick to tracks. Actually, it's probably only 12 feet. We have 2 plastic face shields with an airtight seal. This car was driven for about 2 months by various employees of mine. After the last employee and I parted ways, I thought, well, how hard could it be to take over their shifts for 6 weeks? Something like that. 7, 8, 9 weeks, whatever. I thought the hassles of hiring and training somebody would be more difficult than cutting them loose after a couple of months. Wasn't going to do them any favors. I think I was wrong about that. It's actually been extremely taxing on my time and schedule to cover those shifts. I am faster and better at it than the employees were, probably. But that does not mean I have, well, then you gotta say, would I have done it anyway? Somebody calls me up for a one-hour job, the pay is right, I'll go and do it. I would have gone and done it anyway. If I'd sent the employee to do a single job, I probably probably would not have profited. Well, let's think about it. I would have made a very small profit in relation to the risk. Risk being the person crashes my car, the person gets hurt, can't work for the business anymore, you know, all these sort of latent, baked-in risks that come from entrepreneurship. Zone. Traffic's going a little fast for the work zone, even I'm going a little too fast. So when you have 16 gallons of water, the above mentioned equipment, what does that do to your car? Well, it's harder to stop. It's also harder to accelerate, which is ironic, I guess, but you have more stopping, you have more braking power but less stopping power, because if you let off the accelerator you slow down faster, but if you hit the brakes it's harder on the brakes, right? So it's a strange. Okay, why, what are you, a construction worker? Good night, you in fact are. So there's a lesson for road work. People who are down there working right now, they all have a construction entrance where they get on and off the highway. And you might think somebody's slowing down for an exit, but they're actually slowing down to turn off the highway completely. That's why a lot of better sites will put up trucks entering and leaving highway signs, things of that sort, so that the traffic isn't blindsided by sudden decelerations. Also, one less claim against one of your trucks pulling out of the highway. Now you can't make employees use the designated entrance, it's hard. Sometimes they're going to just pull off wherever the work happens to be that day, and it's a moving, evolving thing by nature, a highway construction, you know. One day you're going to be here, the parking area is a quarter mile away, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and park down by where the work's happening, okay, you know. So right now I'm getting between 19 and 40 miles a gallon. It's a little more like it. We're in a valley. Well, I can see that the speedometer, or the fuel gauge, has moved a tick since I left. That's really disheartening. It was close to the F, now it's closer to 3/4 tank. And I've been driving for 15 minutes. So if you're really getting 6 miles to the gallon, and a gallon weighs 9 pounds, burning it up. So I'm ahead of schedule by about 10 minutes. That's good. Showered yesterday, so just washed my hair out and washed my face instead of the whole thing all over again. The nice thing about doing my work on a Sunday, I've worked both days this weekend. yucky outfit and mow the grass, then took a shower. I was going to shower anyway from mowing the grass. Why not combine it with a profit-producing activity? Fairly mild weather as well. Although the weather is doing strange things. Talked to someone in Southern California. They used to have a climate pattern similar to ours. Now, in the last 20 years, they're seeing a lot more brutal late Septembers. As are we. At least sort of that last kind of heat wave before fall. Like it. I don't want it to go away just yet. I mean, it's gone. In fact, my pool is closing. My pool will be closed today. I think it's today. I don't think it was widely used even during the warm days. I didn't see anybody using it. Have the freedom to stay open past Labor Day, give it a try. Might as well. I don't know how long a heated pool stays open. I suspect the cost of heating the pool is probably your biggest detractor. So you have this pool that is going to be usable even through the winter. Downside is to make it usable, you're going to have to heat and stabilize the water at a considerable expense. I don't know if temperature stability impacts structural stability. If it gets very cold and if it's freezing outside. I'm just not sure. If it's winter time and freezing, I see the covers on pools and I always wonder if there's still water underneath. You leave the water in it all year and let it freeze. It seems like that's a bad idea. But refilling a pool every year seems also extremely expensive. So I'm not really sure. When we have sub-zero temperatures, I can't imagine it's a good idea to have those pipes and fittings filled with water. I think that's got to be drained out. That's my assessment of that. So there's another wild expense of pool ownership. Just the water. Purchase the water from your water company. So the bouncing wheel thing has not been an issue on the highway as much lately. That's been good. Still don't know what caused it. There's some bad bumps hitting the wheel. Usually on the right side, and then the steering wheel just shimmies back and forth. I put on my flashers, I slow down to 50 miles an hour, and it usually stops by about 50 or 45 miles an hour, and then I resume highway speed. I've been very fortunate that nobody's around me, really. I'm kind of curious what they see on the outside of the car. What does the wheel look like? Is it bouncing up and down? Is it wiggling in and out? It's just so strange. There's no weird wear marks on the tires. Just never heard of anything quite like that. So 20 minutes to get to here. It's a little long. It's a little... I think I took the long way. goes 6 gallons. That's a quarter tank of gas right there. That's disgusting.
Watched me do it for a year. Drove this car to work every day. Most days, many days. Maybe gas was a little cheaper. It probably wasn't. I've been thinking about getting a hatchback car. And I've been checking out hatchbacks on the roads, in parking lots. I've even gone to car enthusiast websites where they give you measurements of hatchbacks. So this Jeep right here, Patriot, it's a fair car. It gets maybe 18 miles a gallon, okay? But I'm already getting 16. That car does me no good. However, something like a Prius hatchback, or a C-Max hatchback, or something like that, by Ford, those get 40 or 50 miles a gallon. Even a Fiat, the reissued Fiats, they get, if they're a stick, 30 to 40 miles a gallon. We're talking about a significant change of math. So, if I pay myself 68 cents a mile, or whatever it is, to drive this car, it basically pays for the fuel, with a small offset of the depreciation. The depreciation is not significant. This car's basically worthless. But it's not maximizing the numbers. I've probably driven this at least 2,000 miles on work routes, not more. So, what if you had a fuel-efficient machine that you then paid yourself 67 cents a mile, but it cost you, say, if I drive, okay, so 16 miles in this car, it cost me $3. For the same money, if I got 40 miles a gallon, it's about a 2.5 times multiplier on your return. So this energy consumption, better all around. The problems being, I might have to get rid of this car that has excellent utility, or I'd have to pay for storage of the fourth car off-site, or something like that. Not a thrilling concept. This car is fantastic thing. I wish I could drive it to work. I wish I had a shorter commute. I could sell my, probably never sell my other cars. Just miles on it, and door dings, and hole punched in the bumper, and everything else. It's been rode hard, especially on the interior by the kids. But I've maintained that car since it was 3 years old. I think that's right. Take it to the dealer. I mean, this car's going to run easily, the other car, I mean, easily another 100,000 miles by my reckoning. It seems to drive smoother than the newer car that I have as well. Although it is a little cramped inside, I don't care for that. If I think that car's cramped, I ought to try out one of these compact cars. So up here, you'll see a gray minivan. Unfortunately, that is another option for me. Essentially, a minivan is this car, but smaller, lower, dirt cheap. A discarded minivan is one of the few sources of value in this economy right now. You can take $1,500, $2,000 cash and get yourself a minivan with a decent amount of life left on it. But you're driving a minivan. So I've been looking at the layouts of minivans. Oh, we've got I think that's just construction. It looked like a fire up ahead. Oh, that is strange. Driving off the road just to get a look at it, and you can see what that is. Sandblasting, perhaps. Reminds me of when I've done something that most people haven't done, and that is go to a place. I don't even know how you would describe this place. I think I called it a stone shop. S-T-O-N-E shop. But it was not a stone shop. A gigantic yard. So in high school, if you had perfect attendance at my high school, I believe it was, and you were in an underclassman or something, and if you attended class and missed no class or very little class or something, you were exempted from semester final exams. I guess I don't know if that was a way to deter dropouts or what. To go around this group of cars. It's risky, but I think we just need to go around them. So if you attended class, perfect attendance, you didn't have to go to your final exams. Sounds hunky-dory, except that you had families saying, what are my kids supposed to do during these days, right? I mean, I was 15, whatever. Final exams were at least 2 days every semester. And so the question is, what was I going to do with a day off on a weekday? Well, I went to work with my dad. Where I want to add, I was not a profit-producing member of the team, I'll put it that way.
didn't have an iPad or a smartphone to shove my nose into, but I did the analog equivalent in those days. Pissing off and doing nothing. But I looked around, I watched stuff, I learned what was going on, and it was kind of different. It was, I don't think anybody's ever seen this before. So, these giant slabs of granite and marble, they're taken from a quarry. They're cut out of the quarry in some kind of transportable block. The blocks are placed on, we're talking big, like the size of that pickup truck over there, big, if not even bigger, taller. It's whatever the quarry find can support, and whatever, you know, the trucks that haul them can support. They'll just cut it out and sell it by the pound or whatever. So the stone shop had a yard where these blocks would be placed, and then they had to be reduced into further workable blocks to be moved around the yard. A forklift, I suppose a forklift is what moved them, but I want to say that some of them were too big for that. Most of them were too big for that. So what they would do is, I think they use those, some kind of like a crane type of thing, pick them up, something maybe. So once the blocks got placed in the yard, surrounding the yard was this frame. And on this frame was a gigantic diamond-bladed saw head that was the size of, I don't know, that blade had to be 18 feet circle, right? Like a giant skill saw blade. It's, you know, 18 feet around. More, because think about it, the bottom half of the blade, the circle, has to be able to fit the radius of the blade, okay, the distance from the center of the circle to the edge, has to be large enough to get through any block of stone. If it can't fit through, it can't cut the stone into workable pieces. It would have this crack at the bottom. It would have this, you know, you can't cut stone like wood. You can't just break it off. You're going to destroy it or destroy the block or whatever. I would also add that these rocks look, well, they're not rocks, but they've been rough cut, whatever. They don't look like granite on our countertops. They look just like rocks. They haven't been polished or anything, so it doesn't even look like what it is. So, because it hasn't been polished. So, this saw would move on the frame. The saw's in the middle, and it's got a connecting bar, you know, that goes to the perimeter bars, and you can slide it. Slide the blade across, you can slide the bars that held it from one edge to the other edge, so that you could basically just line up the blade to wherever your giant block is without having to move it. Get it dumped off, and then you get the saw lined up to cut it, and then cut it, and then it would just go. Now what made this interesting is, I think this shop was indoors, like a warehouse, right? We weren't actually out in the elements. So you were in this room. The reason you can't be outdoors is because to cut with a diamond blade is kind of like a tile saw. You have to have water. Water keeps the blade from burning. So this gigantic saw, you have to imagine the amount of water that's getting pumped into this thing. water goes down in the cracks, or it gets discharged above the blade, I think. The water goes down into the crack, it floods the crack. It also absorbs all, well, not all, but most of the dust. So if you're sawing wood, there's sawdust. When you saw stone, you're actually carving stone out of it that's the width of the blade. And that stone is being reduced to particles of dust, debris, most of which is caught by the water and sent to the floor in the form of sludge, like cream-colored sludge. It looks like the melting vanilla ice cream. So all that sludge has to be mopped up and sent down a drain. And above the saw, inside a room, this dust is flying up to the ceiling, filling up the room, in addition to the stuff that's turning into sludge at the bottom. And you just run this thing for as long as it takes. You gotta make sure that it's not burning up, you're not damaging the block. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. But that was what I did. Looking at that dust cloud from that sandblaster reminded me of that experience. Just remember, everything was wet. The floor was wet. Your clothes would turn the color of the dust. I mean, it can't possibly have been a good thing to be breathing, looking back on it. There's no way that breathing that stuff is healthy on a regular basis. I don't think people were wearing anything either. But you cut the blocks down, you get them, and then there were smaller saws to cut the blocks further. And eventually you would cut off a piece that could be used as a countertop. And somehow the side that cut it, I think if you use the right blade or something, the side that was cut came out polished. I'm not really sure how that worked, but once they had the blocks down to a workable size, they would then create basically a sheet of plywood size sheet of granite, marble, and on the side that they cut it, it was somehow polished. I don't know if they used a polishing blade or what, but I don't remember anybody like going along and actually manually polishing one side of the stone. It was just like the one. I know that doesn't make sense, because if you're just slicing it off like a summer sausage, eventually there would be a block that had two sides polished. That just isn't how it works. So I don't know. But there would be one side polished, one side not. And these blocks would get, set up on wooden racks, and then they could be sold to retailers or contractors or whoever needed it. And there was a going rate. There was price per pound, and then a price per square foot, the wholesale price versus retail price versus Home Depot's price, all that good stuff. It was an interesting business.
I don't think my dad enjoyed that part as much as the carving and sculpture. He was big into art and sculpture and things of that sort, working with his hands. I don't know why I haven't really gotten that, but my brother did. I think he liked to do things more than I did. That sort. Art class always felt like work to me. Everything was too structured and rigid. I didn't like anything structured. I didn't want to be told how to paint. I just wanted to paint, you know. When someone tells you the rules, it doesn't become fun. That's a consistent theme of my life, is that if I had a rule, I don't like doing it anymore. I was playing poker once. This is not even a view. Look, I guess it's just the sun, you know, it's a bright sun. I was playing poker once, and then, you know, I used to play traditional poker games, and then they added in this. Texas Hold'em had a lot more rules. I could handle those rules, just barely. But then, you would have these groups of guys who started adding in their own rules. Well, you have to declare if you want to quit, or whatever. It's like, dude, it became not fun for me fast. Irrespective of whether I made money or not, that wasn't the point. But the more rules you put on something, the less I like doing it. And that's just a general, probably true for everybody. But anyways, I digress. I've been driving for 45 minutes. This commute was entirely too long. We're almost to the 3/4 mile mark, 3/4 tank mark. 46 minutes, I'll allow it. The sun is shining, 68 degrees. We're gonna make it a good day, folks. I'm gonna shut her down and wrap it up.